Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm filming my April wrap-up today. I read 10 books in April, so it was a pretty good month. I have them all stacked here. Oh my goodness. Here they are. And there's a few ebooks this month as well. All right, so the beginning of the month, I read some Shadowhunters books. I already posted a video on my channel of the first part of my Shadowhunters read through. For this month, I kind of took a break from that. I'm going to get back into it in May. But I did finish City of Heavenly Fire this month. This one I read at the very beginning of the month. I think I actually started it the month before in March. But this was a long one. This was the longest one yet. But I really liked it. It was a great wrap up to the original, or the first series. And it was really fun. And then after that, I thought I was going to plow through and read the whole series altogether. So the next one I read was Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. I read this one right after finishing City of Heavenly Fire, but it was after this one that I was like, okay, I need a break before I get to the second half of all of these books. There's so many of them. But yeah, I really liked this one too. It was a bunch of short stories that were all kind of interconnected, and it kind of did a great wrap up of the old stuff and setting up for the new stuff. So I really liked kind of how they did that. All right, the next book I read was by an author named Shawn Hitchins, and it's called The Light Streamed Beneath It. This book comes out in, I think, November. I got an advanced copy. It's a memoir about this man who he's lost a few people close to him. Two of his boyfriends died within a couple of weeks of each other. And it's kind of about his processing of that grief, and more like a nice tribute to the lives of these men that were close to him. I had a hard time kind of giving this a proper review because I actually kind of knew one of the men who died, which was a whole other story in itself because I didn't know that that's what this book was going to be about when I picked it up. But yeah, it was a really well-written memoir. I really enjoyed it. It's going to be published later this year, so definitely check it out. Sorry, I can't go too in-depth with that one because obviously the content is a bit close to home. I read a lot of shorter books this month. This one was The Incendiaries by Kwon. I've been hearing a lot of things about this author, so I was really excited to read this book. And I enjoyed it for the most part. This is pretty short. I think I read it in a day or two. This is about some students at a university who kind of fall into a kind of extremist club who, I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe without giving too much away, but this was a book all about kind of religious extremism, kind of far-right politics, how people can go down those rabbit holes, and kind of how these trains of thought can infiltrate and take advantage of your vulnerabilities. I thought it was okay. I really liked the writing. It switched perspectives of characters a lot, and sometimes I had trouble keeping track of whose head we were in. This also is a book that doesn't use quotation marks when people are talking, which is a trend that I keep complaining about, but I do not like it. This is on that list of books that do that. So if that bothers you like it bothers me, look out for this one. But I think the subject matter in itself is good. The plot really doesn't pick up until the last, I want to say 50 pages. But it was an entertaining read. It was quick. I read it in a day. So it's still a good one. I like it. I really look forward to seeing what else Kwon comes out with, because this was well written. And while the story wasn't exactly what I was looking for, I'm sure that this writer will come up with something really great in the future. Okay, the next book I read is Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. This is a book about a young woman who lives in London, and it's kind of all about her experiences as a young 20-something growing up. It's a little bit about her childhood, but mostly about her young adult life, kind of finding her professional footing, finding her romantic footing. It doesn't really have much plot. This is just a book that is kind of a slice of life It's a little bit frustrating because it's about her kind of making the same mistakes over and over again, but it had really great things to say about race and growing up Black in the UK. I really liked this one. At first, I didn't think I was going to like it at all for the first maybe 50 or 100 pages, but after I hit that mark, I was in. Like, I got really attached to Queenie as a character, and I really liked listening to her voice and kind of seeing how she navigated this world. I really wish there was more plot, though. There's apparently a sequel in the works, so maybe there'll be more plot in that one. But that's my only wish for this one, was that more happened. And that there was more of like a driving force. This one was a bit frustrating because the character didn't really have much motivation herself, and that was kind of the point of the story. But because of that, there was not really anything for you to root for her for. You just wanted her to be okay. She didn't have any goals or anything to accomplish. Okay, the next book I read is The Archive of Alternate Endings by Lindsay Drager. This is a book that I heard about from Kaylee Hyde on BookTube. It's published by a small publisher. It's not getting a lot of buzz. It's a pretty discreet, like kind of just slipped out there in the world. But this was incredible. This was definitely my favorite book of the month, maybe my favorite book of the last couple years. It's super short. I read it in one sitting. I started reading this book and I immediately had to like run across my house looking for a highlighter because there was so many lines in here that I needed to remember. This is another book that's really hard to describe what it's about. It's very abstract and experimental. That's kind of a theme of my reading this month. Some different things going on, which I really enjoy. But this is a book, it's a book about Hansel and Gretel and kind of a retelling of Hansel and Gretel, but it's using Halley's Comet as kind of a framing device. And it's also saying a lot about AIDS and environmentalism and relationship between siblings. And there's just so much going on here in so few pages. And it seems like a mess when you describe it, but the way that she pulls it off is incredible. This was such an amazing book to read. I was glued to it. I'm going to read it again and again and again. Some of her insights are just so thoughtful. And she kind of found a way to talk about things that we all think about all the time and found a way to talk about it in a way that's fresh and kind of compares things in ways you never really expected them to be compared before. And it was entertaining too. Oh my God, it was great. Read this book. Go support a small publisher. I loved it. I'm going to be telling everyone about it. I might order some more copies and give them away. On the other side of the coin, I read an advanced copy of the book Yes, Daddy, which is by Jonathan Parks-Ramage. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I didn't like this one. This one comes out in May, so you can read it soon. This has been getting a lot of buzz on social media. I think they sent out a whole bunch of advanced copies. Almost everyone I follow on Instagram who would be interested seems to have read it already. But I didn't like it. This is a book about the main character, Jonah, who's a young man who lives in New York, kind of beginning of his career. And he starts a relationship with an older man who's a very successful playwright and screenwriter, and goes to the Hamptons to his like vacation resort compound that he owns with his other famous friends. And it basically becomes incredibly traumatic and abusive. And I was kind of pitched this as a thriller, but it's not even really a thriller. It's more in the realm of A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. If you've read that book, kind of trauma parade that book is. This is like that, but it doesn't have as much to say. And I found that the things that this book does have to say, kind of the message that it leaves the reader with, wasn't the best. It kind of leads into kind of some damaging stereotypes about people and queerness and religion. I didn't like it. And I know I'm not in the... I know I'm kind of outside the norms here because everyone else seems to love this book. I think that what it had to say wasn't worth saying. And this story, it's just, there's so much abuse and people hurting each other so much without much takeaway from it, especially stuff towards the end where things get like real messy and it doesn't affect the plot at all. It has nothing to do with anything. It kind of had a Me Too story going on, which I think it would be okay if it stuck to that, but it kind of brought in religion into it and family dynamics and a whole bunch of other stuff, and I didn't like it. It's not worth it. There's better stories that you could read. I'd recommend doing some research and reading some nonfiction about actual abusive relationships and how they were brought to justice, because this fictionalized version was just traumatizing for the sake of trauma. Okay, the next book I read is Luster by Raven Leilani. I was wanting to read this book for a really long time. I was kind of holding off, waiting for the paperback to come out. I think it comes out in June. But I saw it on sale. I couldn't resist. This is one that I wanted to read for a while. I kept hearing more and more about it, so I bought it. And I really enjoyed this one. This is about a young Black woman who, there's absolutely a theme in these books this month. This is about a young Black woman who has an affair with an older married white man. It's all in New York as well. And it kind of becomes this story of how different lives can kind of fit in and reflect and navigate around each other. Not too pretty early on in the book, she ends up moving in to this man's house with his family. And it's kind of about how the whole family interacts with each other and the different relationships at play there. I thought it was good. It wasn't great. I thought that the main character, I can't remember her name now, Edie or Eddie? She was really funny in the first third of this book, but then the humor just kind of disappears for no reason. So I really enjoyed her insight in those early chapters, but then I missed it. The relationship between her and the man's daughter, I think, was the most interesting part of this book. I wish there was more of that. It seemed to focus more on her relationship with his wife, which was kind of boring. Not a lot happens in the middle of this book. All of the action is very focused on the beginning and the end, and then the middle is just this long kind of time where they're all just kind of revolving around each other for no reason. And I thought this book was very similar to Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. I think this one is funnier, but that one was more, I think it's up here somewhere. That one was more insightful and had a bit more to say. But I still really enjoyed the writing that I still really enjoyed Raven Leilani's writing. I thought she was a great writer. Next is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This is a Japanese book that was translated into English. It's super short. It was 150 pages. I read it in an afternoon. And it's super cute. This is about a middle-aged woman who works in a convenience store. She's had this job since she was a teenager. And she doesn't want to leave it because it's so familiar. And it's kind of about societal expectations and how her friends don't really appreciate her and don't really understand why she doesn't want to pursue a husband or pursue a bigger career. But it's all about nonconformity and doing what makes you happy and doing what you're comfortable doing. And it was super cute. And it's kind of about her discovering for herself what it is that she likes about her life. And I thought it was great. It's not too complicated. It's short. It's translated, so obviously it's a little bit choppy sometimes, but in general, the writing was really good. It's a quick read. I think this would be a really good audiobook. You could listen to it really quickly. But yeah, I really like this one. It's super cute. All right, the last book I read, I just finished this morning. It's No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. I've decided I want to read all of the shortlists nominees for the Women's Prize for Fiction, as well as the Booker Prize. And this was one of them. This was kind of on my radar for a while. A lot of people have been reading about it. It's big in the kind of social media book reviewer space because it's a book about social media. I heard a lot of mixed things about it. I heard from a lot of people that they really liked the first half, but then the story kind of shifts and the second half wasn't as good. I was the opposite. I thought the second half was way better than the first half. The book is written in the same kind of like train of thought, jumble. It feels like reading a Twitter feed with a bit of a narrative. But it's messy and most of it is disjointed thoughts, and the story only actually comes into it every once in a while. Like every few pages, there'll be a little like sprinkle of plot, and then it goes back to kind of generic internet ramblings. And it is really insightful. It has a lot to say about how we use social media and the kind of hive mind of our generation and of people who spend a lot of time on the internet. But I thought the second half was so good. It was all about kind of grief and the repercussions of the society you built and all of these great big ideas and family dynamics. It had a lot to say, and I thought it really pulled it off, and it had the same kind of disjointed Twitter feed-esque style in the second half, but it brought more plot into it, more things happened, and it had more to say, and I thought it really actually pulled the two halves of the story together really well. I thought I was going to hate this book, but I really liked it. It's one of my favorites this year so far. So yeah, it's kind of a hard book. Another one that's experimental and hard to describe what it's about. Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I think it'll be interesting to see how this book ages because so much of it is written like in memes and in just like catchphrases that are just part of our vernacular now from spending so much time on the internet, especially in this past year, that I wonder if in 5 to 10 years, the book is going to be like complete nonsense and impossible to understand what this author is trying to say. But for now, I think it's a very poignant, very in the now book that is really good to read. If you are someone who spends a lot of time on the internet, especially on Twitter, I think this book is going to do something for you. Anyway, those are the books I read this month. I was a bit passionate in my reviews. Hopefully the sound turns out okay because I'm not sure how this microphone works. But yeah, that's my review of everything I read this month. Please stick around. I have more videos coming. I'm going to be doing some more Shadowhunters books. Probably in the next month, I'll have the next part of those vlogs. I'm also recording some other vlogs as well in the meantime. So stick around. There's lots more to come. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.